Okay, today we are joined by Doug Eaton, the CEO of Strategic Metals. Thanks for joining us, Doug.
Thank you very much, Sean.
So tell us about yourself and your role in the company.
Okay, we'll start with the company and I'll say a few words about myself and my background. Strategic Metals is a junior mining company. We're a primary project generator operating mostly in the Yukon territory, a little bit in adjacent jurisdictions as well. We're interested in pretty much every commodity that's of interest to the markets. We've been in business for about 20 years with our current business model, and I think we've been pretty successful at what we do. Personally, I've spent more than 50 years in Yukon, ran a very successful consulting company over that time. I think over that period we were undoubtedly the largest explorer in the Yukon territory, and through it we built up an enormous database. Probably the second largest private database on mining in the Western Cordilleras. So we were able to mine that and come up with good exploration ideas. Excellent.
All right, so you definitely have some depth in your experience. 50 years is a very long time. So you've had since you're 15, sounds like. So tell us about the rest of the team and what differentiates them from the market.
Okay, well, first of all, we've maintained, even after I've resigned from Archer Catherine Associates, the consulting firm, we still have a very close relationship with that group. And they have some very experienced geologists who worked, again, in a very diverse type of metal deposits and across Yukon and in other jurisdictions. Some of them did regional mapping for the government before they came to Archer Catherine. So they bring a wealth of knowledge to our organization because we're very closely integrated. Richard Drexler is our VP of Communication. He does a lot of work with investors, but he also does a lot of work with the First Nations and the communities. And we pride ourselves as being one of the industry leaders in early stage consultation and feel that we have a very good social presence in the territory.
Excellent. So I think viewers, retail investors would be very interested in knowing your selection process when you look at all these different opportunities because it's a strategic advantage. Yep,
it's there's a number of things that go into it. First of all, I'd like to say that we're a bit of an omnivore, and we're not sheep. We don't follow the herd. Sometimes we're very contrarian. If we see a very good prospect for a commodity that's badly out of favor, we will pick it up if we think it's a top of category type deposit or prospect. I'm not afraid to hold claims for many, many years if need be until the commodity comes back into vogue again, because the holding costs in the Yukon territory are extremely modest, but among the lowest in the world. We manage our portfolio. We've got over 100 active mineral projects and 13 NSR royalty interests. So we manage our expenditures very carefully to make sure that we maximize the assessment credit, in other words, the time that we're allowed to hold the claims. And as different metals or different deposit types come into vogue, or maybe a different region, there's made a major discovery made in some mineral belt, we're very, very quickly able to capitalize because almost every part of Yukon, we've got several properties there. So suddenly we've got properties that are available for option or sale. We don't have to go and try and compete with others. We pick them up very low cost by staking when other people weren't interested. So that's a big part of it.
Yeah, excellent. With 100 different properties and 13 royalties, that is a lot. Sounds like you're pretty well insulated from market changes and things like that. So can you compare yourself maybe to some of the royalty companies because you have so many joint ventureships? And
some people have done that. Some people have said that we're almost like a royalty company. Other people have likened us to more like a holding company because not only do we have 100 mineral property assets or mineral properties, we've got very large share interests in a number of other projects. The generative model says that we acquire projects cheaply by staking, advance them as economically as we can, and then when we can find a healthy partner, we option them out to a group that wants to take on the more advanced exploration costs and the work that is required for development. Allows us to maintain our focus on early stage stuff. And through that, we've ended up with large share interests in what I think are some pretty interesting, more advanced projects. We don't always maintain that share interest as those companies raise money. but we started out with a pretty healthy slug. So right now we have about 7 or 8 projects that we have between 15 and 35% of the company. So if they're successful, that can be very, very lucrative for us. The royalty interests can be highly lucrative. About 10 years ago, we sold 3 of our royalties for $30 million US. And so we can't understate what those are worth as well. So it's we're always looking for opportunities to increase the value of the company and to return value to the shareholders. Over the past 10 years, we've made 3 share distributions to shareholders and allowed them then to either hold those stock if they like what the new companies are doing, or to sell them and generate cash. And that amounts to about $20 million of distribution to shareholders. I don't know of another junior companies that they've been added anything else. So I think it puts us in kind of special category. Interesting. Yeah, that's very diversified, and almost like in some of these investment bank portfolios is it's very nice. Talk about, you've had some great strengths. We always ask, what kind of weaknesses does the company have and how are you addressing them? I think the biggest single weakness that we have is we don't have a strong mining team backing us up. In other words, we have people with some mining background. I certainly have done small scale mining in the past, but as you move a project forward, you need that strong mining team, and that's why we focus on the early stage work. We don't like to go into levels of the development that we're not comfortable with, and so we're mostly geologists and geological engineers rather than mining engineers. And so we try to work around our weakness by staying focused on what we do best, which is early stage exploration, target identification and advancement, and looking to find the right partners. I think we're good negotiators. I don't ever drive the hardest bargain that can be driven. I'm looking to come up with a deal that's a win-win for both sides, so that if I deal with the same company again somewhere in the future, I'm a preferred partner. They'll come to me if they need another project, rather than thinking what a bad guy I was and how badly I took them to the bank on the last deal. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, in this industry, or in any industry, it's all about connections, and people do business with people that they like and trust. So talk about that. And you're 50 years in the industry, who to go to for what kind of deal. Yeah, I think a lot of people recognize that if they're interested in the Yukon, that we're pretty much the go-to company for if they want a project, especially if it's a commodity that's a little bit different than the mainstream. There's lots of people chase gold, but a lot fewer people chase tin and porphyry coppers and VMS deposits. There's very few people who say they've got exposure to just about everything. Interesting. Okay, let's get into the financials and the runway of the company. That would be helpful. Okay, well, I think right now it's an enormous opportunity. Our industry is beaten up. Everybody's share price is down badly. We're certainly at the low end of our trading range for quite a while, but it creates an enormous opportunity. Our market cap today is about $27 million. We've got $5 million in cash, no debt, about $38 million worth of shares of other companies. All those companies have been beaten down badly, just as we have. So I think there's really good uplift potential there. We're trading at about 60% of what the value of those. That says nothing about the 100 mineral properties, which have many years of holding paid for already, and all the royalty interests. So I think that someone who's looking for a holding company or ETF type exposure to the industry, the risks are minimized. But we will be drilling a couple of our own projects in the next year or so. We've got some money that we raised at 60 cents not too long ago. We haven't spent it all. We're very prudent in our expenditures, and I'm sure that we'll be drilling at least a couple of our properties, probably porphyry coppers, where 1 or 2 holes can be game changers. They can go from discovery to a major discovery in very short order, and build resource really quickly at low cost. Great.
Let's kind of get into the shareholder mix. You sounds pretty complex with all your different portfolio options and companies. So let's talk about private, public.
Yeah. Well, first of all, for strategic itself, we've got three major institutional holders. There's a lot of others who've got lower levels, but Condir Group out of Dallas is the largest single shareholder at about 18%. Ruffer's got just under 10%, and both of those groups have been adding to their positions recently. In addition to that, Sprott Gold has got, again, just under 9% as well. I've got a pretty healthy position. The rest of management certainly does as well. We've got 110 million shares outstanding. We really haven't diluted ourselves much in the last 10 years. We've got good enough cash flow to pretty much maintain ourselves without really having to go to the market in a significant way. 120 million shares fully diluted. So we're still relatively tight, especially given the large showing of some of the others. Our interests, we've got about 30% almost exactly of Rockhaven Resources, a company working on a high-grade epithermal gold district. They've got 1.8 million ounces already in gold equivalent in the resource base. That will grow soon. They've had a couple drill campaigns since the inventory has been updated. They're in the midst of preparing a pre-feasibility, which should be available in about 9 months. So it's an advanced project, and we're very happy with our investment there. Another one is a company I founded to look at ways to remediate tailings. And in the process of our research, we came up with a way to produce Portland cement or Portland cement equivalent from a non-limestone based sources, in other calc silicates. And it's very broadly applicable. The company is now completely independent. Management's run by a very, very good team that's totally independent from our board. We've currently got about 12%, but with our warrants, we could go back up over 16%. They've been very successful at raising large amounts of money, and they're about to put their first commercial plant in early next year. Large shareholders, Breakthrough Energy, one of Bill Gates' incubator companies, Rio Tinto, and Lennox, the big home builder in the U.S., have just come in at prices far, far higher than what we paid for our shares. We're the second largest shareholder still in the company, so we really wish them all the best. They've got exposure to some very interesting gold projects in the Walker Lane area through a company called GGL Resources, which you own about 35% of. They're also looking at a very exciting porphyry up in quite close to the old Chemist mine in central British Columbia in Canada. And another company that I'm particularly excited about that's still private is a company called Broden Mining, which is working in a joint venture or partnership with the local First Nation, the Ross River Dena Council, to reactivate the old Faro Mining District. It was, for many years, it was the largest lead zinc mine in Yukon territory and one of the largest mines, lead zinc mines in Canada. Only about half the metal that was in the district was mined. And we have an agreement with the government of Canada, the government of Yukon, the First Nation to look to put it back into production again. And I think it'll proceed extremely quickly from the level it is at now to feasibility. I think that a less than 3-year time frame is entirely reasonable for that to happen. Still have to get the final agreement signed, but everyone wants to get it done, and we're very close. So we've got over 30% of that. Our costs were basically the time it took for me to come up with the idea. So again, we've got a very strong CEO, Donald McGuinness, a lot of experience with First Nations elsewhere in Canada with power projects and other ventures, very experienced with negotiating with Canada and the various provincial jurisdictions. So he's done a marvelous job of moving it forward and building a strong team to advance the project. So extremely happy with our investment there.
Wow, that's a nice size portfolio. I think your ability to do such research is a proxy for, you should be a proxy for a lot of individuals.
Yeah, it's research and it's experience. I spent 50 years of seeing things happen and remembering good projects for other good people to good work, and maybe because of changes in the economy, maybe they went into recession, or maybe the company they were with decided to abandon exploration, or maybe the people just moved on. There's a lot of good projects that become orphans, and if you're willing to step in to be a foster parent, you can pick up some pretty good ground.
Good analogy. So let's talk about the gold price and the challenge. You know, companies without a lot of projects may, not be able to be nimble. It sounds like because you're so diversified, let's say gold drops 20, 30%, how would you be more nimble than other companies, and what would you do?
Well, first of all, often what happens if gold prices drop, something else goes up. And so we would change our focus slightly if, say, base metals were more topical and gold dropped off. Well, we've got a number of really good base metal projects, lead and zinc and copper. So we could pivot and go that way. Right now, everybody's very interested in new technologies, and what many people forget is that there's a number of metals that are absolutely critical to those technologies, which are not produced on the kind of scales that are required. Lithium's the poster child right now, but there's a whole suite of others, and a lot of them aren't produced in North America or even in the developed world. And so there's a real push to find secure sources, and we've been very lucky and patient. We've got a number of excellent tin projects, tungsten projects, vanadium projects. We've got some cobalt projects. We've got a great NSR and a spodumene lithium project, which is the type that is the preferred type of lithium deposit to have. So we're always looking, trying to stay ahead of the curve. I guess the Terra CO2 story is a good example of trying to recognize trends, and in that case we went right out of actual exploration and looked at how do we find a way to work with the environmental groups to find better ways to dispose of tailings, and one of the beautiful things I didn't mention about the Terra CO2 is it produces about 40% of the CO2 that conventional cement does. Cement is one of the biggest polluters of CO2 of any industry. It's about 8% worldwide. And if we can eliminate around 4% of that by converting the industry to this process, that's a big impact. It's also extremely low nitrous oxide generation. So again, it's another gas that goes in the atmosphere that isn't good for people and the environment, and this process is much better for that. So it really eliminates a lot of transportation costs, which further helps with the CO2 balance. So we're always looking for innovative ways to stay ahead of where things are going. Interesting.
Very diversified.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
That's great to hear, or can help the environment too along the process. Let's talk about your strategic exit process or partnership process. What do you look for and when to kind of divest, invest?
Yeah, there's a couple of different things. So, one of the possibilities is if we get some real windfalls, if some of the projects we have large share positions in really catch fire. We've got the ability to dividend out shares to our shareholders as we have in the past. In addition to that, there's always the possibility that someone will realize just the amount of value that exists in the company and try to take us over directly. That would be something that I would fight aggressively to get the best price I can get for it. But I'm a realist. If it happens, it happens. But as long as the shareholders do really well on it, that might be the best outcome for the company at some point. Certainly, we'll work to monetize the royalty interests whenever we can. We're always looking for partners for our properties. And when we see good liquidity, even if it's not an outright takeover of some of the smaller companies we hold shares in, if there's a real run in the stock and there's a lot of market action, there's a lot of stocks trading hands, we're not at all adverse to selling some of our shares into that and generating some more cash.
Excellent. So it sounds like your costs are lower in the Yukon, correct? What other costs do you think you have some?
Yeah, we've got really good leverage compared to because some of our companies are working in places like Nevada and Northwest Territories and elsewhere. And in Yukon, because there's a little bit better road system than there is in some of the other northern areas, a lot of the projects are road accessible. The drill contractors up there, we have a great number of service companies available, and their costs are I'm really quite surprised. Our cost is about the same price per meter to drill as it is in Nevada, but the difference is between Canadian dollars, not US dollars, so there's a fairly major saving there. Our labor costs are much lower. It's cheaper for me. First of all, I can't find skilled geologists and many of the other roles in the U.S. Everybody's busy working. So if I bring a geologist down from Canada, it costs me about a third less to do that than to try and find a comparably trained geologist in the U.S. if I can find one. So that really helps us a lot. You know, and again, we work, our relationship with Archer Cathro, the consulting company, allows us to only use people as we need them. The Strategic Metals is operated at a fairly aggressive level at various times, but we have no employees. I'm a contractor to them. Our COO, who does a lot of our legal work as well as a contractor. Richard's a contractor. We have no contract that can't be terminated in a month's notice, or at very most a few months penalty beyond that. It's very minimal. Our service people are all done on an as-needed basis, so we don't have any overhead costs of any consequence. Really, it's listing fees, the normal accounting and legal fees that everybody has, and after that, it's completely dependent on the level of work we undertake. So if things get really ugly, we can pull our horns in and really keep maintain our cash.
Interesting. That's lean and mean. Yeah. If you're working with contractors, they're usually a little more, have skin in the game and have more interest and don't soak the clock. Right?
Yeah. No, we're doing our level best to make it work. Is what it comes down to. We want to put as much effort into the ground. You asked one time about weaknesses. A lot of people say, "Oh, one of the things of those guys, they don't promote enough. They don't get out and tell the story enough. They should get the share price up." Well, that's fine, except that for every dollar I do there, it's a dollar that doesn't go into the ground. And it might result in a short-term increase in the price of the stock, but every time the cycle gets good, people realize that we're there and our share price responds really, really well. It responds because we got a good product, and I've got to put the money in the ground to get the product. So I don't want to mislead the investors. I want them to realize that there are a lot of risks in our industry, and make sure that they go with their eyes wide open, not because somebody's railing at them and phoning them into the middle of the night and saying they should buy, or giving them a song and dance about how they're going to be in production in 6 weeks and knowing full well it's more likely 6 years. So we try to be upfront and honest in our disclosures.
Yeah, so it sounds like the typical investor is a little more, has their ear to the ground on what's going on with the company. So what are some of the catalysts that you've had in the past that drive the stock, and what may in the future?
Well, in the past, there's been a number of them. Certainly the royalty sale was a good one for us. We've done a number of very lucrative option agreements in the past that got some attention. One of the big ones was a company that I founded back around 2000 and managed to the point where they made a major discovery. It was a company called Attack Resources. We had a very large share position in Attack, and unfortunately I had to bow out of the management team there because of potential conflict of interest, because I was acting as the CEO of one of the largest investors, and simultaneously we had a major role with Attack as well. But that stock went from 8 cents to $10 on a carbon discovery in Yukon. It had $1 billion market cap, and our interest in it responded very, very well. We sold some of our stock. We had to be very careful when we sold, so that we were in line with disclosures to the public and securities regulations. But we did very well on that, so that was a marvelous catalyst for us. I think some of the porphyries that we're working on right now, and some of the lead zinc occurrences we're working on, and Terra CO2, I think we have potential right now to have some real breakout events in the next little while. I think Rockhaven's pre-feasibility could be very, very lucrative. I think people may finally realize that's real. It's going to be a mine one day, and it's going to be a very profitable and very long-lived mine. So I think that the investors need to wake up to it. There's a lot of catalysts. I just really can't go into them all, and it sort of depends what happens at the drill bit on some of them.
Excellent. Let's kind of wrap up here. You've done, I think, an excellent job in showing the value of your company and all the potential opportunities. I think investors really need to look at your experience and the diversification of what you created and the lean and mean operation that you have. So what kind of final words would you like to give people and talk about how they really should keep up with you guys?
Well, the key thing, first of all, we trade on the Toronto Venture Exchange as the symbol SMD, so that's important. We have a very active website that's updated frequently. But really, the best way to get a hold of us, if you want to talk to someone, get a hold of Richard Drexler. Richard's available. He lives night and day with a telephone or a computer in his hand. He'll get back to you and give you everything you know. And if he can't answer the question, he'll make damn sure that I give you a phone call and do give you the information that you need. I really can't say much more than that. We're very open to talking about what we can about our mineral projects. And quite frankly, I've been in the industry a long time. I could have retired a long time ago, but I choose not to because it's just too damn much fun. And we're always looking for the next discovery, looking over the next hill or the next pan, and might be the one with the nugget in it. So we're always looking forward.
Great, Doug. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Sean.